Well, hello and welcome to Are We Winning Yet? Episode 11 April. A couple additional things I want to do today, just like we normally do. Let's go right to the data, get the latest information from New York City. Go ahead and plug it into our trend model, see how things go. But in addition today, what I want to do is a little bit of a deep dive. So we're going to come up, it's going to show about 1,500, a little over 1,500 hospitalizations from the data set before. But what exactly does that mean? In the past, what I've been doing is just putting in the summary numbers and plotting them, but I've come to realize that there's some data, there's some interesting information behind that we need to go ahead and take a look at. So fundamentally, about a week ago, they've actually started including the data sets, and they put some comments in there saying that the data is actually an aggregate of reporting. And so today, let's do a little bit of deep dive into that, do some analysis of it, and see what kind of conclusions we can draw for what's going on in New York City today, how that forebears or what that means going forward, and in this particular case, and then what that means from a strategic standpoint, from a country standpoint. Here are the overall numbers. This is what it looks like when they're plugged into the trend. And here is that 1,500 hospitalizations actually explained over the last two data sets. So if you go ahead and take a look at the numbers, plug everything in, it's a little over 1,500 hospitalizations for the 11th. And the trend doesn't look like it's a whole lot better. But when you start taking a look at the detailed information, it gives us a slightly different story. So if you take a look at the two data sets and I say two data sets, I mean today data set from the 11th and the data set from the 10th, it gives you a very interesting story. So really, what they mean when they're reporting on the 11th, they're not really reporting on data from the 11th. There's actually 0 admissions for the 11th in this data set. There's only 8 admissions from the 10th. The 9th, you get 304. The day before, 566, 367. The day before that, 166. It's not really until day 7 or day 8 that those numbers actually even come on down. And so what you can do is that it's not easy to see also, because you have to retain multiple data sets and compare not just the total numbers, but the delta between the two. So I did some analysis on that, and there's the picture. You can see the red arrow there. That's the current report date, and then the blue is the actual date that the data that's getting filled in from the date before. So you can see that's somewhat problematic, and that the data just keeps on being snowplowed into the data to the right. Now, what we'll find out, and it does appear that this thing is flattening, but you can imagine that in the simple terms, that means you can't make any decision or any analysis of the trends until almost 7 days after the reporting date. So this, to me, speaks to a couple things. One, I think it speaks to the complexity of the reporting, the organization, and the logistics for a big city. Like I said, the devil's in the details, and I think we also underappreciate how complex this is. There's some dates, there's some modifications that go back, months. They're still playing with the data, still adding to it. The other thing that I think is interesting for us, at least for New York City in this conversation, are we winning yet, is that when somebody makes a decision and we have enough information to know that we've actually stemmed the tide, it's actually a week in our rearview mirror. So not only are we past it, but we're past it by a week. It also puts a little bit of fear in anybody when you think this thing can go up and down in somewhere around 10 days or 2 weeks, is that you don't have enough of a reporting system to know you're getting into it or you're getting out of it before it's all said and done. So to a certain extent, that's also frightening. But what I'm hoping now, and I think that from a country standpoint, we need to have everything in place on how we're going to return to work, because when this decision is made, or the data supports a decision, we're already going to be a week out. I think also fundamentally, it's going to make an interesting thing from a country standpoint, and not just returning to work, but how are we going to do things different in the future? Because if you have a system like this, you really don't have a chance of getting in front of anything. So if you have an organization that a leadership, but also a logistics, a reporting, and an organizational leadership, or organizations that are fractured, in the fact that you can't even get the information in a reasonable amount of time, you don't ever have any chance of getting in front of this thing. It's, to a certain extent, like we mentioned before, it's the Kobayashi Maru scenario, is that you're dead before you even know it, and the thing is swimming through. So, interesting thoughts, and I think it also supports the fact that life is not always simple. There's always life is complex, and if you need to understand it, you need to at least spend a little bit of time thinking about that and what that means. So, in summary, I think the data is looking like it's flattening in New York. These hospitalizations look like they're stabilizing around 1,500. Of course, another day or two we'll know, and by then it should be dropping quite rapidly, because we're a week behind the data reporting. So if there's any good news coming out of Easter today, it's that. And I think that in the next 7 to 10 days, there'll be significant changes as we move forward.